Well, this past weekend and the first day of free agency frenzy did not disappoint. QBs getting signed, traded, lots of things going on, wide receivers, you name it, it happened. The market has been crazy for some of the position groups as well. So I'm going to break that down team by team in a rather quick fashion just so you guys can get caught up on most of the stuff that happened today, at least from a big picture standpoint, right after. Well, there has been so many moves for free agency frenzy on the first day that I don't even really know where to begin. So we're just going to look at this team by team and just talk about some of the craziest moves. We know over the weekend, Josh Allen agreed to terms on a new 6-year deal that's featuring $250 million guaranteed. Today, they signed Joshua Palmer to a 3-year, $36 million deal. Previously, they extended Khalil Shakir, so they are definitely keeping some playmakers around in Khalil Shakir. Obviously, we knew Josh Allen was going to stay around. Then they added Josh Palmer with the barefoot man, Mac Hollins, being a free agent himself. Then Greg Rousseau got a big deal done. Terrell Bernard as well. So there's a couple key pieces on defense. Miami Dolphins have done nothing. The Patriots, just a little bit ago, they agreed to a 2-year deal with Joshua Dobbs. They re-signed Austin Hooper. Then they added Morgan Moses today, a 3-year, $24 million deal. Then they got Harold Landry III, massive 3-year, $43.5 million deal. And it doesn't end there on the D-line. Defensive lineman Milton Williams, massive deal. 4-year, $26 million deal. Good God, that is insane. Well, then the Jets, they signed Justin Fields to a 2-year, $40 million deal with $30 million guaranteed, which is pretty crazy. Lots of quarterback moves happened today. The Ravens have been quiet so far, but they did re-sign Ronnie Stanley, which was a pretty key piece for them. Then the Bengals, they've been a little all over the place here. A lot of minor moves aside from franchise tagging T. Higgins, but they did sign former running back Samaje Perine. He was formerly with the Chiefs. They signed him to a 2-year deal. So you've got him on a 2-year contract worth up to $3.8 million. T. Higgins is still tagged. It's $26.2 million for his second straight tag in 2 years. They want to get a long-term deal done with him. We will see, but they did get a long-term deal done with tight end Mike Gesicki, 3-year, $25.5 million worth $12 million. Then defensive lineman B.J. Hill is returning on a 3-year, $33 million deal as well. And we will see what happens with Jamar Chase. That is something everybody's watching out for. Is Jamar Chase getting paid? And if so, how much? Then here we go. The Cleveland Browns acquired Kenny Pickett in a trade with the Eagles in exchange for Dorian Thompson-Robinson and a 2025 5th-round pick. That's pretty insane. I mean, maybe they think Kenny Pickett is their quarterback of the future right now while they are in cap hell. Think about it with the Deshaun Watson situation. Then they just extended Myles Garrett to a massive contract extension as well, making him the highest paid non-QB in NFL history, an average salary of $40 million a year. But this is certainly something I didn't see coming. We wondered what the Browns would end up doing at the quarterback position, and it looks like for now, we'll see if they make any other moves or even how they operate in the draft, but Kenny Pickett could maybe be their guy. The Steelers have been relatively quiet today, but they did trade for DK Metcalf over the weekend with the Seahawks, obviously in exchange for a 2025 second-round pick. Then they extended him, signed him to a 4-year, $132 million contract extension. It's an average of $33 million APY. DK Metcalf said, hey, I want warm weather, I want a contender, and I want a quarterback that's going to throw me the football. Well, Pittsburgh, I don't know if they're going to be a contender. They don't have good weather, and we don't even know who their quarterback is going to be at this point in time. But hey, money talks at the end of the day, and that goes the same for the previous team I just talked about with the Browns. Myles Garrett said, hey, I want to go to a contender. I want to win a Super Bowl. I want to compete for rings. I don't care about more money. He allegedly or reportedly declined talks with the team on an extension. Well, instead, he got paid a lot of money. DK Metcalf got paid a lot of money. So at the end of the day, money talks. Moving on. Well, the Texans, who desperately need offensive line help, traded away their best offensive lineman today as well. They're trading away Larry Tunsil and a 4th-round pick to the Commanders for a 2nd, 3rd, and a 4th, which is pretty crazy. I would assume The Commanders also extend him because he's only got one more, or maybe 2 more years rather, left on his deal, but you can get out after this year. Well, I would assume if you're going to give up that much, you're going to also extend him and keep him around. He's about 30, 31 years old, but you're going to keep him around for years to come. As your staple left tackle, the Commanders are making moves, definitely saying F them picks because they're trading for everybody. Deebo Samuel, they traded for Marshawn Lattimore at the end of the season, before the trade deadline rather, last year. And then, obviously, they just got Laramie Tunsil as well. And this is pretty new as of when I'm recording this video. Charvarius Ward, the former Chief and 49er, who dealt with a lot of things last year, lost one of his children. It was just tragic, but he definitely wanted a fresh start elsewhere. Well, he's getting a fresh start elsewhere as he agreed to a 3-year deal worth up to $60 million, $35 million guaranteed with the Indianapolis Colts. And they also added to their secondary via former Viking safety Cameron Bynum. They signed him to a 4-year, $60 million contract. So they're really beefing up their secondary. A couple other moves that the Jags made was adding former Bucs center Robert Hainsey, a 3-year, $21 million deal. And then cornerback Jordan Lewis, former Cowboys defensive back Jordan Lewis. It was a 3-year, $30 million deal with $20 million fully guaranteed and $12.5 million in year one. They also added safety Eric Murray to their secondary, making a lot of moves here. 3 years, $22.5 million, $12 million guaranteed. The Titans, they signed offensive tackle Dan Moore Jr., formerly of the Steelers, and they signed him to a 4-year, $82 million deal, $50 million guaranteed, $30 million guaranteed in year one. I mean, absolutely insane stuff. This is why you have the Chiefs doing the moves that they made earlier, because this is ungodly money for Dan Moore Jr., but hey, they got their tackle of the future, I guess, so there you go for the Titans. The Broncos re-signed quarterback Jarrett Stidham, 2-year, $12 million deal. Obviously, he's going to be their backup behind Bo Nix. And then safety, I'm butchering his name in advance, I am sorry, Talanoa Hufanga. Great safety. They signed him to a 3-year deal worth up to $45 million, $20 million guaranteed. The Chiefs, they added running back Elijah Mitchell to a 1-year deal worth up to $3.5 million. It's really a prove-it deal after he missed all of 2024 with a hamstring injury. They re-signed Marquise Hollywood Brown. Then today they added offensive tackle Jalen Moore, who was formerly the backup 49er for Trent Williams. Left tackle for Trent Williams, started in 5 games last year. 2 years, $30 million. As a bit of an eyebrow raiser, but when you look at the offensive tackle market, i.e. Dan Moore Jr. and how much he got, this might have been a steal, to be honest with you. They then franchise tagged Trey Smith, brought back linebacker Nick Bolton to a 3-year, $45 million deal, and then tendered Matt Ariza. The Raiders, they traded for Geno Smith from the Seahawks last Friday, and then they're getting him a long-term deal done as well. So obviously the Seahawks have no DK Metcalf. He's with the Steelers. They have no Geno Smith. He's with the Seahawks. But they do have a quarterback, which we'll talk about here soon. But back to the moves that the Raiders made. They basically made Max Crosby a very, 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 very rich man, signing him to a 3-year extension worth $106.5 million, $91.5 million guaranteed. A lot of money, to say the least. They got a guard, Alex Kappa, 2-year, $11 million. Then they re-signed defensive lineman Adam Butler, a good move for them, 3 years, $16.5 million, $11 million guaranteed. The Chargers, they brought back Khalil Mack today. That was probably one of the bigger ones. They re-signed him on a 1-year, $18 million contract that is fully guaranteed. But hey, happy for him. They got Dante Jackson, 2 years, $13 million. Elijah Molden, 3-year, $18.75 million extension. So he's going to remain. Then they're keeping their punter J.K. Scott around as well. If we get to the NFC East, they've done a few things here. Talking about the Cowboys, starting with them. Osa Odighiwusa. This was last week. They re-signed him to a 4-year, $80 million contract. But outside of that, and then re-signing safety Marquise Bell to a 3-year, $12 million deal, it's been pretty quiet. Now, the New York Giants, they re-signed Tommy DeVito. Let's go. They could potentially be in on Aaron Rodgers. It is one potential spot. We will see if he actually goes there or not. They then agreed to terms with Paulson Adebo, 3-year, $18 million deal, and re-signed their punter Jamie Gillen. The Eagles, they didn't do too terribly much other than retain some key people so far, but they made Saquon Barkley the highest paid running back in the NFL, and then they re-signed Zach Bond to a 3-year, $51 million deal. A couple of their D linemen have moved on, and I'll be curious to see what other moves they end up making. Now, the Commanders, I mentioned this earlier, but they traded for Deebo Samuel last week with the 49ers in exchange for a 5th-round pick. They got tight end John Bates, re-signing him on a 3-year, $21 million deal. Zach Ertz as well on a 1-year deal. This is the big one, trading for Laramie Tunsil. I mentioned that earlier, but they're trading for Tunsil from the Texans. And yeah, they are just really doing what they can to build around Jaden Daniels, and I do love that move for them. They re-signed Bobby Wagner. They got defensive lineman Javon Kinlaw to a 3-year, $45 million deal as well. For the NFC North, I mean, the Bears have been kind of going a little bit crazy here. They traded for guard Jonah Jackson. They traded for guard Joe Thuney from the Chiefs. They then signed center Drew Dahlman to a 3-year, $42 million deal. They got Edge Dayo. They got Edge Dayo Odeyingbo. 3-year, $48 million with 32 fully guaranteed. Big contract. Another one. Defensive tackle Grady Jarrett. 3 years, $43.5 million. I mean, there's just so much here. The Lions re-signed Marcus Davenport to a 1-year deal worth up to $4.75 million. They got linebacker Darren Barnes they're signing him to a 3-year, $25.5 million extension. And then they signed DJ Reed, cornerback, on a free agent deal. I don't know the details on that one right now. The Packers have been a little quiet other than a couple moves they made earlier today, which was cornerback Nate Hobbs, the former Raider, I believe, a 4-year, $48 million deal. Needed that. They re-signed Brandon McManus, their kicker, last week, so that's not new news. But then they also got their offensive guard Aaron Banks agreeing to a 4-year, $77 million deal, which is obviously a big thing for them as well to protect Jordan Love. And Aaron Banks, by the way, was formerly of the 49ers. I didn't make that clear enough, but wanted to clear that up. The Vikings now, they re-signed Aaron Jones to a 2-year, $20 million deal. Then they did get safety Theo Jackson, getting him to agree to a 2-year, $12.6 million extension through the 2027 season, with Cam Bynum reaching that big deal with the Colts. They agree to keep Theo Jackson around. You couldn't have lost them both. Then the Falcons, they signed offensive tackle Jake Matthews to a 2-year, $45 million extension. So that was cool. And then they kept their long snapper around, but pretty quiet otherwise. We'll see what they do with Kirk Cousins, if anything at all. The Panthers, I mean, you got Andy Dalton. Cool. Then you signed nose tackle Bobby Brown III to a 3-year, $21 million deal. J.C. Horn was probably the biggest one of the day. He became the highest paid cornerback in the NFL. 4-year extension worth $100 million. Shoring up their secondary as well with Trayvon Moehrig. He signed a 3-year, $51 million deal. So the Panthers have made several moves there. Also getting former Viking Patrick Jones II on a 2-year deal worth up to $20 million as well. So they've definitely have been making some moves. The Saints, one move. They acquired Davon Godchaux. I'm sure I said that wrong, but they acquired him in a trade with the Patriots in exchange for a 7th-round pick. Now, the Buccaneers, they got Chris Godwin to come back on a 3-year, $66 million deal, and some were reporting that he ate money. He missed out on money he would have gotten free agency to remain with the Bucs. He made it clear he wanted to stay there and to keep playing for Baker Mayfield, and stay there he is. They then re-signed their offensive guard Ben Bredeson to a 3-year, $22 million deal, and re-signed linebacker Levante David, 1-year, $10 million. They also got Hassan Reddick to a 1-year, $14 million deal. The Cardinals, they got offensive tackle Kelvin Beachum to re-sign, but they haven't done a ton of moves on the offensive side of the ball. Where they did really make a couple moves was getting edge Baron Browning. They re-signed him to a 2-year, $15 million deal, but then most notably, Josh Sweat, the former Eagle, 4 years, $76.4 million, including $41 million guaranteed. Good God almighty. The Rams, they got Jimmy G returning on a 1-year deal. They restructured Matt Stafford to keep him around. They kept their left tackle, Alaric Jackson, around by re-signing him as well. They then, over the weekend, signed wide receiver Devontae Adams to a 2-year contract worth $46 million, $26 million guaranteed. Re-signed wide receiver Tutu Atwell to a 1-year, $10 million deal. They're also reportedly going to be trading away Cooper Kupp. We'll see where he ends up landing and how that all shakes out. And then super recently here, I'm recording this around 5 p.m. on Monday, but they also signed defensive lineman Poona Ford to a 3-year deal worth up to $29.6 million. The 49ers, they re-signed a running back, Patrick Taylor, after they lost another one of theirs to the Chiefs to a 1-year deal there. They also got a 3-year deal done with Luke Farrell, $11 million guaranteed, $20.25 million in total. And then big news here for the Seahawks after trading away Geno Smith. They got one of the highest available free agent quarterbacks on the market, and Sam Darnold, signing him to a 3-year, $100 million deal with $55 million guaranteed, $37.5 million in year 1. That's a good get for them. I mean, it's probably a similar-ish deal they were going to try to get done with Geno Smith, but you get way younger. Geno's 34, 35, whereas Sam Darnold is still his mid-20s, 27, 28, so you go younger. We'll see how this actually ends up shaking out. I think he has a little bit more longevity, but you don't have DK Metcalf. You don't have Tyler Lockett. We'll see what they end up doing. You've got Jackson Smith and Jigba, which I love, but yeah, a lot of question marks there for the Seahawks offense, and I'll be curious to see what else they end up doing. You also got Jaron Reed. He re-signed a 3-year deal worth up to $25 million, and then linebacker Ernest Jones re-signed on a 3-year, $33 million deal as well. And then, of course, now that I got through the list of teams, it definitely doesn't end there because there were several high-profile signings worth talking about. I mean, look at this. You had the Dolphins signing former Jets and Broncos QB Zach Wilson, so he's going to be QB2. Then Tyler Tart and the Chargers agree to a 1-year deal. Turk Wharton signs a huge 3-year, $54 million deal with the Panthers, which is awesome for him. Then you have the Vikings to sign former Colts center Ryan Kelly. That's cool, I guess. But another bigger one would be Darius Slayton staying with the Giants. 3 years, $36 million. That's another big one. He cannot leave New York Giants purgatory. On top of that, after adding to their safety room with another former 49er, the Broncos also signed linebacker Dre Greenlaw to a 3-year deal worth $35 million. Holy smokes. Look at everybody that so far has departed in free agency for the 49ers. You got Aaron Banks, Charvarius Ward, Hufanga that we talked about, that's also with the Broncos, Dre Greenlaw with the Broncos, Jalen Moore, Chiefs, Elijah Mitchell, Chiefs, and then Joshua Dobbs, Patriots. They are going through it, to say the least. Oh, and that's not to mention Deebo Samuel, so it's safe to say the 49ers are certainly going through it. And then before we get out of here, the Chargers are close to finalizing a deal with running back Najee Harris. It could be done before you guys see this video, but they are reportedly close on getting a deal done with Najee Harris, and that is actually per Ian Rappaport. I don't know who the fantasy source is. My editor sent me that, but Ian Rappaport did tweet that out. Pretty Ricky had it first. Slick Rick, just so you know. You guys got to make sure to let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. What moves did your team make that surprised you the most? Do you like what they did? Hate what they did? Did they do nothing? Let me know either way in the comments down below. And with that, I'll see y'all next time.